Have you ever felt that quiet sting when someone's tone cuts just deep enough to remind you you're not being seen? It's subtle, an interruption, a smirk, a look that makes your worth feel negotiable. You want to respond, but something wiser in you whispers, "Hold." Because real power doesn't shout, it stands. Stay with me. Let's uncover how. As we step into the first chapter, imagine this. You're sitting in a room where your words dissolve before they even land. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence, their tone brushing past you as if your presence were air. The others continue as though nothing happened, but inside, it stings. It's not the kind of pain that shouts. It's the quiet ache of being unseen. Disrespect doesn't always arrive with raised voices or open insults. It comes wrapped in subtle gestures, a smirk, a shrug, a silence that tells you your voice doesn't matter. And in that moment, your mind starts to spin. Do you fight back? Do you explain yourself? Or do you do something far harder? Stay still. Centuries ago, the Stoics learned this same lesson. Real power begins in the mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The way someone treats you is one of those outside events. You can't control their tone, their words, or their arrogance. But you can control the way you stand in the face of it. The battlefield isn't the room, it's inside you. Now imagine that same moment again, but this time you choose differently. You don't argue, you don't scramble for validation. You simply meet their eyes. A calm, unshaken gaze, steady as stone, unmoved by the storm in front of you. That's not weakness, that's presence. The kind of silence that bends the air in the room. I remember a meeting once where a man bulldozed through every voice at the table, mine included. I tried to speak, first gently, then firmly, but he cut through every word. Finally, I stopped. I leaned back, folded my arms, and let silence fill the space between us. I didn't blink, didn't frown, didn't flinch. Just silence. Calm and complete. Something changed. His words began to stumble. His confidence wavered, and for the first time he looked away. I hadn't said a thing, yet the entire dynamic shifted. My silence had spoken louder than any defense. That day, I learned something I never forgot. When you withhold your reaction, you reclaim your power. The silent stare isn't defiance, it's control. It denies chaos the reaction it craves. They feed on the energy you spill defending yourself. When you deny them that, you cut the string that ties their behavior to your peace. Seneca once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the essence of this quiet defiance. The stare becomes a mirror. Without a word, you force them to face their own discomfort, their own smallness, reflected back at them. There's something ancient in that kind of silence. It's the stillness of a lion in its den, surrounded by noise, provoked by smaller creatures yet unmoved. The lion does not rise for every disturbance. Its calm is its authority. When you meet disrespect with stillness, you're saying, "I will not dance to your tune. I will not be pulled into your chaos." And that message carries more weight than any clever retort. I once knew a woman who laughed nervously whenever her colleagues mocked her ideas. She believed her laughter would soften the moment, but it only taught them she could be dismissed without consequence. One day, instead of laughing, she just looked at the man who'd made the joke. Silent, calm, steady. The air tightened. Not because she caused conflict, but because she refused to feed it. Over time, the joke stopped. Her silence had redrawn the boundaries. That's the power of the silent stare. It's quiet, but it's not passive. It's the presence of someone who knows their worth and refuses to let others decide it for them. When you hold your gaze, you're telling the world, "My peace is not up for negotiation." Each time you practice it, you strengthen the foundation of your self-respect. You begin to see that your dignity was never theirs to grant. It was always yours to uphold. Here's the truth. The less you react, the more power you hold. The person trying to provoke you will feel it first. The unease, the loss of control, the dawning realization that you cannot be moved. And that realization shifts something far deeper than the moment itself. It shifts you. You start to see that strength isn't in the argument won, but in the calm you keep. There's a story the Stoics would have understood well. A traveler once came upon a raging river. The current was loud, wild, unrelenting. Instead of fighting the water, he stood still and waited. The river didn't quiet, but his understanding did. He realized that his peace was not found in silencing the noise, but in standing where it could no longer move him. That's what your silence does. It anchors you in yourself. So, when someone talks over you, when they mock your presence or treat your voice like a whisper, do not chase their respect through argument. Let your calm be your language. Let your eyes speak what your words no longer need to. People remember stillness. They remember what cannot be shaken, and when you stand there unflinching, you'll feel the shift, the one that separates the person reacting from the person commanding. Disrespect loses its grip because it has nowhere left to land. You'll realize what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." That's your task, to be the cliff, to hold. This is not silence born of fear. It's silence born of clarity. It doesn't seek approval. It declares, "I am my own standard." Every time you practice it, you prove that peace is not passive, it's chosen. Every test from the world is a mirror showing where your peace still trembles. The silent stare is where you draw the line and stand behind it. So the next time disrespect comes disguised as a joke, a sneer, or a subtle dismissal, don't meet it with noise. Meet it with presence. Hold your ground, quietly, completely. Let them feel the weight of their own words returning to them. That's how dignity defends itself without a single sound. True strength doesn't need noise. It breathes in silence. When you choose stillness over reaction, you don't just protect your peace, you redefine it. And, as we move forward, remember this. The world often mistakes calm for weakness. Let them. A quiet mind is not a weak one. It's simply too strong to be provoked. Moving into the second chapter, imagine this. Words flying toward you like arrows, a careless joke, a subtle insult, a tone laced with contempt. Your pulse quickens. You feel the urge to strike back, to defend yourself, to explain that you are not what they think you are. But beneath that urge lies a trap, because every word you throw back drags you deeper into their game. Every explanation, every reaction becomes proof that they still control your peace. The Stoics would call that the moment you hand over your power, not through surrender, but through reaction. There are moments when silence becomes your strongest language, not the silence of fear, but the silence of discipline. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best answer to anger is silence." He didn't mean the silence of retreat. He meant the silence of mastery, the kind that says, "I will not be moved." It's strange how unsettling that quiet can be to those who provoke it. When someone throws barbs your way and you offer nothing, no flinch, no defense, something shifts. They are left standing in the echo of their own noise, forced to confront what they've created. That's the hidden authority of silence. It exposes what noise hides. I once knew a man who disguised cruelty as humor. Every conversation was a small performance, a chance to jab at others while pretending to be clever. I used to meet him halfway, explaining myself, laughing it off, trying to make the moment less tense. But each time I did, I felt smaller, like I had traded a piece of my peace for the illusion of harmony. One afternoon, he did it again, a sharp comment about my work. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I met his eyes, raised an eyebrow, and said nothing. The silence grew thick. He shifted in his chair, looked away. The laughter faded. He never tried again. That day, I realized I hadn't humiliated him. I had simply removed the stage he needed to perform. That is what silence does. It starves disrespect. It takes the oxygen out of manipulation. Those who thrive on chaos need your reaction to survive. When you deny it, they suffocate in their own noise. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from what happens to us, but from how we respond. Silence, then, is not avoidance. It is control. You are not ignoring them. You are refusing to let them inside your mind. You are closing the door to your inner world, leaving their words stranded outside, powerless to disturb the sanctuary within. And that sanctuary, your calm, is sacred. For years I believed that not defending myself would make me appear weak. But the truth is, reacting made me weaker. Every rebuttal was a piece of my energy handed over to someone who never deserved it. The day I stopped explaining, I began to rebuild that energy, one quiet choice at a time. Silence became a wall I could lean on, not a prison I had to escape. It felt like breathing again after years of noise. Think of silence as a mirror. Every insult, every rude remark reflected back to its source, unamplified by your reaction. You don't fight the fire, you let it burn itself out. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." How much of your life has been spent trying to justify yourself to those who never intended to understand? Every minute spent defending your worth to the blind is time stolen from the life you could be living. Silence takes that time back. Picture this scene. You're at a family dinner. Someone makes a cutting remark meant to embarrass you. The instinct rises to reply, to prove your grace with clever words. But instead, you pause. You take a sip of water. The silence stretches. The remark hangs there like smoke, heavy and embarrassing for the one who released it. You do nothing, and yet the room shifts. Others sense it too. You remain untouched, and they are the ones who squirm. That's victory, not the loud kind that seeks applause, but the quiet kind that leaves your soul unbothered. The practice of silence goes against everything our pride tells us. Pride screams, "Defend yourself." It wants the last word. But pride is a chain, and silence is the key. It takes more strength to stay still than to strike. To walk away with your calm intact is not weakness, it's wisdom. The Stoic path has never been about winning arguments. It's about mastering the self. Freedom doesn't come from controlling what others say. It comes from mastering how you respond when they do. Sometimes the greatest answer is none. There's a lesson the ancients understood. The man who speaks only when it serves his peace never wastes a word. Imagine if every time someone disrespected you, you paused, felt the surge of pride demanding reaction, and then, calmly, you refused it. That's the moment of transformation, the shift from being reactive to being sovereign. You look them in the eye if you must, but your silence speaks in a language far deeper than words. It says, "You cannot reach me anymore." In that pause, something beautiful happens. The discomfort leaves you and settles on them. The power returns to you. Silence becomes not emptiness but armor, a declaration, a quiet revolution. In a world obsessed with noise, restraint is rebellion. The one who can stay still commands the room without raising their voice. I often think of silence as a kind of fire, not the kind that burns outward, but inward. It purifies. It melts away the need for validation. Each time you choose it, you forge yourself stronger, more deliberate, more unshakable. You stop performing for understanding and start living in truth. So the next time someone disrespects you, pause. Feel the urge to respond, but don't obey it. Let the silence rise in you like a tide. Stand tall in it. Let it say what words never could. In that moment you'll see how the weight shifts. The one who tried to control you now stands disarmed, unsure, exposed. Silence is not absence, it's presence refined. It's the voice of self-mastery, speaking in the only tone that cannot be challenged. It reminds the world and yourself that your peace is not theirs to touch. And once you've learned that, once you've seen how silence protects what explanation wastes, you're ready for the next lesson, to stop explaining your life to those who have never earned the right to question it. Advancing to the third chapter, picture this. You make a decision that feels right in your bones. You've weighed it carefully, maybe even wrestled with it in silence. And for a fleeting moment, you feel peace until the questions arrive. Why did you do that? Why didn't you stay? Why didn't you go? They sound harmless, even curious, but behind them lurks a quiet judgment. Suddenly, your peace feels like it's on trial. You start to explain, to justify, to make your choices make sense to people who have never walked your path. And with every word, something small but precious slips away, your certainty. I know that feeling well, the weight of defending your own life, the endless tug to be understood. But here's a truth the Stoics understood long before us. Your life is not a courtroom. You are not here to prove your decisions to anyone. Epictetus wrote that freedom begins when we stop concerning ourselves with the opinions of others. The world will always have its questions. Your job is not to answer them all. It's to live in alignment with your reason, your virtue, your inner compass. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Notice what he didn't write. There's no mention of persuading anyone. No plea for approval. Only a quiet command to act rightly, and let that be enough. But why do people demand explanations in the first place? Because your courage disturbs them. When you take a step they fear to take, your choice becomes a mirror. It reflects what they've avoided, their stagnation, their fear, their comfort disguised as logic. So they question you not to understand, but to pull you back into their safety. Your independence unsettles them because it reminds them of what they've surrendered. Every why they throw at you is not curiosity, it's control. For a long time, I fell into that trap myself. Years ago, I left a stable career to pursue something that made my soul come alive. The reactions came fast. Why give up security? How will you survive? What if you fail? I tried to explain. I gave speeches about passion, purpose, planning, but the more I spoke, the smaller I felt. Every defense became another invitation for doubt. And then, one day, a colleague asked again, in that tone I'd grown to recognize, "Why would you leave such a good job?" I paused, smiled, and said, "Because I wanted to." The silence that followed was pure and clean. It said everything I had been trying to prove for months. And that silence gave me back something I hadn't realized I'd lost, my authority over my own life. That's the moment I understood. Peace begins where explanations end. People stopped questioning me, not because they finally understood, but because I stopped auditioning for their understanding. The truth is, you will never explain yourself into acceptance. Those who want to misunderstand you will always find a way. And those who truly respect you never needed an explanation in the first place. Seneca once wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." In the same way, what need is there to explain every small piece of your journey? The whole of it belongs to you alone. Your choices are not a performance for the world to rate. They are a private contract between you and your own soul. Think of the most grounded people you've ever met. They do not scramble to justify their decisions. They do not send long explanations for why they said no, why they stayed, or why they walked away. They simply act, and their composure speaks for them. Confidence doesn't argue, it stands. The irony is that the less you explain, the more respect you command, because people sense it when you are no longer living like a defendant in the courtroom of their opinions. There is a lightness that comes with saying less. It clears the mental fog that comes from trying to manage perception. Every time you stop yourself from over-explaining, you take back a piece of your energy. Each pause is a declaration. My life does not need your permission. I once knew a young woman who faced this same battle. She chose not to marry when everyone around her expected it. Each family gathering was a rehearsal of the same script. When will it happen? Don't you want to be like everyone else? For years, she tried to explain about her independence, her career, her dreams, but no answer ever softened their judgment. Then one evening, when the question came again, she smiled and said, "Because this feels right to me." Then she changed the subject. It was so simple, almost too simple. But in that moment, she discovered what the Stoics lived by. You owe no one a map of your inner world. Her peace grew from the silence she allowed to stand in place of justification. That is the quiet revolution, refusing to explain. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's saying, I trust my reason, I trust my path, I trust the wisdom guiding my steps. When you stop explaining, you begin to live authentically. The noise fades, the pressure lifts. You start hearing the sound of your own life again. Because every explanation is a rope that ties you back to someone else's comfort. Cut it. So, here's my challenge to you. The next time someone demands an explanation for your choices, breathe. Let the silence speak for you. If you must respond, let it be simple, because I wanted to, because it felt right. Then stop there. Let the silence do its work. You'll feel the power shift. You'll feel the weight lift. And you'll realize that your choices are valid simply because they are yours. Your life doesn't need an audience vote. Your path doesn't need to be ratified by those who never had the courage to walk their own. The Stoics knew that peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from standing firm in your truth, even when the world demands an explanation you don't owe. At this stage, remember this. When you stop explaining, you stop living for approval and start living for alignment. And that alignment will carry you farther than any applause ever could, because in the end, dignity doesn't beg, it stands. And once you learn to stand in that quiet strength, the next lesson will reveal itself, not just to speak less, but to draw the line no one else is ever allowed to cross. Entering the fourth chapter, imagine walking into a room where someone's presence feels heavier than the air itself. You can sense it before a word is spoken. Your shoulders tighten, your breathing shifts, and your mind begins to brace for the next jab, the next subtle dismissal that chips away at your peace. You tell yourself it's not that bad, that maybe you're overreacting, but deep down, something in you knows the truth. Your spirit was not meant to live under the weight of quiet disrespect. The question is, why do we still let such people sit so close to us? The Stoics taught that peace is one of life's rarest treasures, and that to waste it on those who don't value it is a tragedy of our own making. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do, only what you do. That is where freedom begins, not in controlling their behavior, but in deciding who earns access to your inner world. Some people don't deserve that access. Not because they're evil, but because they drain the life out of you, piece by piece, with every conversation that leaves you smaller than before. Think of your life as a home with a limited number of seats at the table. Not everyone who knocks deserves to sit down and eat with you. Some come only to take, to consume your energy, your time, your kindness, without ever offering nourishment in return. They criticize what they don't understand, mock what they secretly envy, and expect your patience to be endless. But here's the truth. You're the one handing them the plate. Keeping your distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's realizing that your peace is not a public buffet. It is a private meal meant for those who honor its worth. I remember someone I once knew who seemed incapable of saying anything kind. Every word they spoke carried a sting, a jab about my work, a laugh at my expense. Even harmless things like my taste in music became targets for their bitterness. At first, I convinced myself to stay close. I said things like, maybe they don't mean it, or it's just how they are. But slowly, I noticed something changing, not in them, but in me. I began to shrink around them. I started rehearsing what to say before I spoke, scanning my words for ways they could be twisted. It was subtle, but it was constant. And one day, I realized I had become a guest in my own life. That was the day I made a quiet decision. I didn't announce it. I didn't confront them or demand an apology. I simply gave myself space. I stopped answering every call. I stopped showing up to every gathering. I let silence become the wall between us. And something miraculous happened in that distance. The fog began to clear. The tension I'd carried for years started to lift. I hadn't lost a friend. I had released a weight that was never mine to bear. Society often tells us that keeping our distance is selfish, that family or loyalty means staying no matter the cost. But the Stoics would disagree. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." He did not say, "Stay bound to those who poison your peace." True loyalty does not demand your suffering as proof. The kind of loyalty that destroys your spirit is not virtue, it's captivity. Distance is not a punishment, it is perspective. When you step back, the picture sharpens. You begin to see the relationship not through guilt or habit, but with the clarity of reason. You see who values you and who only values what they can take. You see who respects your boundaries and who resents them. And from that vision comes a power you might have forgotten you had, the power to choose. I won't pretend it's easy. The first step back feels like betrayal. You'll wonder if you're being unkind. You'll feel the sting of guilt, especially if the person is someone you've known for years. But here's what I've learned. The guilt fades, the peace stays, and the peace is worth it every single time. Keeping your distance does not mean closing your heart. It means opening space for something healthier to grow. You are saying yes to peace, not yes to bitterness. You are saying yes to the kind of people who make you feel seen, not small. Think of it like tending a garden. If you let the weeds spread unchecked, they'll steal the sunlight and water meant for your flowers. Pulling them is not cruelty, it's care. It's love for what deserves to flourish. When you begin to distance yourself from those who drain you, the world opens in quiet ways. You wake up lighter. Conversations start to breathe again. You find yourself laughing without watching your words. That's the beauty of space. It gives your peace room to grow roots. So here's my challenge for you. Look around and ask yourself, who leaves you lighter and who leaves you restless? Who makes you feel grounded and who makes you question your worth? Then ask the hardest question of all. Do they truly deserve the front row seat they've been given in your life? Your time is sacred. Your energy is finite. Not everyone deserves to stand so close to your fire. Keeping your distance is not a wall against love. It's a boundary against harm. It is the quiet act of saying, I choose clarity over chaos. I choose peace over guilt. And the moment you make that choice, something profound happens. You stop seeking freedom from others and begin to find it within yourself. In that stillness, you discover what the Stoics always knew, that the truest form of respect is the one you show yourself. The freedom that follows feels both light and deep, like air after a storm. Because when you finally stop negotiating your well-being, you start living in truth. And once you've learned to guard your peace with distance, you'll be ready for the next step, not just to walk away quietly, but to draw boundaries so clear that no one will ever mistake your kindness for weakness again. Entering the 5th chapter, imagine this. A sharp comment slices through the air, a mocking smirk flickers across a face, and suddenly you feel yourself shrink. Your shoulders fold in, your gaze drops, your voice retreats. That's how disrespect works. It doesn't always shout. It seeps. It chips away at your confidence until you forget how tall you once stood. But there is one simple, timeless practice that can disarm even the boldest critic. Lift your head and hold it high. The Stoics believed that true dignity has nothing to do with reputation or applause. It comes from the posture of your soul. Seneca once wrote, "The man who does not value himself cannot value anything or anyone." When you lift your head, straighten your back, and refuse to bow to cruelty, you're not performing confidence for the world. You're reminding yourself that your worth is not up for debate. I remember a man who made it his small mission to belittle me every time we crossed paths. The insults were dressed as jokes, but they carried teeth. At first, I brushed them off, told myself it was nothing, but over time, the words found a place inside me. I started dreading his presence, anticipating the sting before it even came. One day, something inside me shifted. I decided to stop meeting his gaze with lowered eyes. I walked into the room, shoulders back, head high, and when the comment came, I looked straight at him, smiled calmly, and kept walking. No defense, no explanation, no wound for him to see. The effect was instant. His smirk faltered. The power he thought he had over me dissolved. That's when I learned. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding their illusion of control. There's something magnetic about self-respect. Those who depend on disrespect to feel powerful cannot stand to see it. Your confidence unsettles them. It breaks the illusion, reminding them of the void they hide behind control. Confidence unsettles those who manipulate weakness because it shows them that their power only ever existed if you handed it over. The moment you stop bending, you take it back. Society often misunderstands this. It tells us to stay humble, to blend in, to avoid seeming too confident. But humility is not the same as self-erasure. Stoic humility is strength without show. It's knowing who you are so deeply that you no longer need to prove it. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to walk as though nature itself had formed him to live with dignity. To walk, not crawl, through the opinions of others. That is what it means to hold your head high. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. It is remembering that you are already enough, that your value does not depend on the noise around you. Think of a crowded room. One person enters quietly, shoulders slouched, eyes lowered, hoping not to be seen. Another enters with calm composure, steady gaze, measured stride, head lifted. Without saying a word, that person commands respect. Not because they demanded it, but because their very presence says, "I belong here." The Stoics would tell you that this kind of presence cannot be faked. It comes from the stillness of someone who no longer seeks permission to exist. For me, that confidence didn't come easily. I used to think it was safer to shrink, to stay quiet, to go unnoticed. But each time I practiced standing tall, both in body and mind, I began to feel something change. I didn't just look stronger, I felt anchored, I felt clear. It became a kind of ritual, a physical reminder that respect begins within. When you value yourself, the sting of other people's negativity begins to lose its grip. You realize their words don't define you, they only reveal them. And here's the truth. This posture goes far beyond how you stand. It's how you carry your spirit. It's the calm in your eyes when someone tries to provoke you. It's the quiet knowing that you no longer need their approval to feel whole. Each time you lift your head, you build the fortress of your own self-respect. Those who try to tear it down can only stand outside, shouting into walls that no longer echo. So the next time you feel the burn of disrespect, whether it's a sharp insult or a subtle dismissal, don't fight, don't defend, just breathe, lift your head, meet their eyes, and walk on. That single act will say everything you need it to. Because holding your head high is more than posture, it's philosophy in motion. It's the living embodiment of the words, "I know who I am," and nothing you say can take that away. In the end, respect doesn't start with how others treat you. It starts with how you treat yourself. The higher you hold your head, the clearer you remind the world and yourself that your dignity is not negotiable. Stand tall, own your worth. And remember this, confidence doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you free. And once you learn to walk that way, you'll see it clearly. Respect was never theirs to give or take. It was always yours to claim. And that's it. 5 timeless ways to face disrespect with strength and calm. Life is too short to shrink for the comfort of others. Stand tall, guard your peace, and remember your worth is not up for negotiation. When you stop chasing validation, you rise above noise and reclaim your power. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to keep growing with us. Comment, stay strong below, and remember, your calm is your greatest strength. The next lesson awaits you.